You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello and welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow. This is our first episode of the new year, so happy 2024 to all of you. And it is also our first show where we are officially After Sight. I know I've been telling you that our name was changing now for probably a couple months each show, but it's finally happened. So this podcast is being brought to you by After Sight and all of the wonderful folks there, all of the team there. So today, I'm very excited to have Chris Peterson back. We spoke with him last year about finance, but I know he and his organization, Penny Forward, they did some strategic planning last year, and they have new initiatives and new things going on. So in addition to some financial literacy information that he'll be sharing with us, I'm excited to hear the updates of what is happening with Penny Forward. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Kim, for having me.
Maybe for folks that might not have heard the episode last year, can you just tell folks a little bit about Penny Forward?
Absolutely. Penny Forward is a new nonprofit organization founded and led by blind people. We were founded in 2021, and we provide accessible financial education programs and services to the blind community. We do that through self-paced online courses that you can take on your own time and at your own pace. We also offer weekly and monthly Zoom calls where we talk about financial topics, and we offer one-to-one financial counseling from blind accredited financial counselors for people who maybe want to keep their finances a little bit more private or maybe have more complex needs.
That's great. And I think I saw on your website as well that you have a book club the books are related to financial types of topics.
Yeah, that's a brand new thing we just started this week. The Tuesday Turning Pages Book Brunch meets every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and we work our way through a financial or personal development book. We try to choose books that are available through NLS Bard so that they're available to everybody, and it's been really fun so far. We just started a book called You Need a Budget.
And we all need that, right?
We do.
I think many of us, including myself, can struggle with that, but it's certainly important to have one and to be able to follow it. So,
a little secret, I struggle with that myself. It's something that is an area of growth for all of us, just like exercise or diet or anything related to our lives. I don't think anybody is really ever at their peak unless they happen to be like an internationally renowned athlete, and even they would tell you that they are always looking to improve.
Definitely. I think the financial area in our lives, whatever our income level is, I think that's always just something that's challenging and trying to make good decisions. So I think the services that you're offering are really important. I know I was just in a meeting last night with a person who was going to meet with someone for financial goals and commented how so many trying to plan for retirement. She's several years away from that, but wants to be planning, and commented how so many of the calculators and things that are generally available aren't accessible to blind individuals. So I think this, the services you're providing, and obviously when you started Penny Forward, you must have seen some sort of gap in that area to help individuals with vision loss?
I did. Some of the gap is accessibility, as you point out, although there are plenty of really good accessible tools out there as well, and we try to find them and bring them to the attention of our community when we can. But some of it, as someone mentioned in a meeting I was in last night, is there are so many moving parts to a financial plan that being able to put together that kind of connective tissue and associate it with some of the unique needs we have as blind people is really helpful.
And so you mentioned having a financial plan, but when we're talking about financial literacy, is that more than a plan? I'm sure it involves a plan, but what is your definition of financial literacy?
We tend not to call it financial literacy so much anymore. We tend to refer to it as financial knowledge because it has a better connotation among some people. Mm-hmm. But basically what financial knowledge is giving you a good understanding of all of the pieces of your financial life. So how compound interest helps you to grow your savings, how budgeting helps you to manage your money and make sure that it's going towards your priorities instead of maybe things that you don't want to be putting your money towards, how paying attention to your credit reports and credit scores and your overall credit health positions you to get better terms on loans when you need them. And then there is a planning aspect to it as well, understanding how the decisions you make today can affect your life years or sometimes even decades down the road. For example, a 25-year-old who's able to put aside about $100 a week in savings for their entire working life will be a millionaire by the time they're 65. Whereas if you started at age 45, you'd be talking about putting away at least $1,000 a week.
Right.
So there's some really impactful things you can do when you're young that can really change your life when you're older. But that shouldn't discourage people from getting started at any age because there's always actions you can take to improve your financial situation, your quality of life, no matter where you are.
Chris, can you speak a little bit more to some of those basic components of financial knowledge that folks should be aware of and should be thinking about?
Yeah. One of the biggest, most important ones is compound interest. And this is an area that it's really difficult for people to understand, but in a nutshell, when you put your money in a bank, in a savings account, the bank pays you money to have your money in that savings account. Mm-hmm. And they do that by putting money back into your savings account. So over time, you actually grow your savings just by letting it sit there. But it grows even faster if you put savings away regularly into that account. And it also matters what bank you choose. Most banks offer savings accounts that only earn you about 0.5% per year of interest, but there are special savings accounts called high yield savings accounts that these days are sometimes offering you 5% or more per year of interest. And there's no risk to these other than that if you don't use them, you don't earn that interest. So as an example, in my personal life, I have about $7,000 in a high yield savings account, just as sort of a backup for my personal life. And about once a month, I get about $18 from the bank just because I keep my money in the bank.
Right.
So that by itself, if you multiply that by 12, that gives you a few $100s a year. Mm-hmm. Which isn't much, but it's every little bit helps. And over time, that's why somebody who starting at age 25 puts aside $100 a week in savings can become a millionaire. It's not because they put that money away for a long time. That's part of it. But another part of it is the interest that they earn by starting so young and having that money sit there for such a long time.
Right. Do those types of savings accounts have minimum balances that you need to keep typically?
Sometimes, not always. Sometimes there are terms where they will only allow you to earn interest for a certain period of time, maybe a certain maximum balance in some cases. So you do have to read the fine print and figure out what's going to work best for you. And interest rates do fluctuate. So if you find a bank that's going to give you an interest rate of 5% today, maybe 3 months from now, that might be 4.5%, or it might be 5.5%. Mm-hmm. But it's relatively easy to move your money from bank to bank if you want to. And with a lot of forms being online these days, and many of them are quite accessible, it's relatively easy to open a new account when you no longer want to use the account that you currently have. But as you point out, Kim, it is good to read the fine print and make sure that there are no fees, that there are no minimum balances, unless you don't have a concern about keeping a minimum balance, mm-hmm. Or there are no other terms that maybe make it so that that particular account doesn't work for you.
Great. Well, I know we're going to come back to savings and dive into that a little bit deeper. What are some of the other key components of the financial knowledge that folks need to have?
Another key component is your credit health. And many people really think of this as their credit score. Mm-hmm. The reality is that we have many different credit scores that are calculated in many different ways, but they are all calculated from the same set of information. There are 3 credit bureaus in the United States, and whenever we borrow money from a bank, that bank reports that to each of the 3 credit bureaus, and they compile a credit file on you so that you always have 3 credit files. The 3 credit bureaus are called TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And you can pull your credit file from each of the credit bureaus by going to annualcreditreport.com or by calling an 800 number where you can order your credit report in Braille or large print or audio CD, so you can get all of this information accessibly, and it tells you what accounts you have open. It tells you what you owe on those accounts, and it also tells you about accounts you may have had closed in the past. And you want to check that on a regular basis, maybe once every 3-4 months if you can, because sometimes the wrong information makes it into your credit file. Someone may have a similar name to you. My name, Chris Peterson, is a very common mm-hmm. name. And so I check my credit report regularly because at one point I apparently owned a trucking company that I didn't know about.
Oh, wow.
So you want to make sure that you check your credit files so that you can alert them to incorrect information that might negatively impact your credit scores. You also may find out that there are things like accounts that are in collections that you just forgot to pay on, and you want to make sure that you get those paid off so that they're taken care of. You may, in some of the worst cases, find that your identity has been stolen, and you want to get that corrected if at all possible. So your credit health is a really important component of your overall personal finance.
And I know you can pull your credit report from each agency once a year with it being free. So if you're checking every few months, are you recommending folks check one credit bureau every few months, or how would you recommend people do that if they're trying to check more frequently than just once a year?
So interestingly, since COVID, the once a year guideline has changed.
Oh,
now
good.
you are able to check your credit files much more frequently. If I remember correctly, it's once a week. So
that's a huge change.
It is a huge change, and they decided to make that change permanent because they found that people were really using it, and that it was helping people to have healthier credit. And people having healthier credit, having access to that information, it's good for the people themselves. It's good for the banks. It's good for the health of the country. So now you don't have that once a year restriction. But the recommendation used to be that you would check each one of your credit files from each one of the 3 credit bureaus once every year, but you staggered that
Right.
over the course of 4 months so that you could get a sense of where you were multiple times a year. Don't have to do that anymore.
Oh, great. I did not know that. Good to know. If you do find something on your credit report, like owning a trucking company that you weren't aware of, how difficult is it to get something like that removed or corrected?
It's not difficult at all. However, a lot of people find it to be difficult. One of the things that people sort of think that they can do is that they can just call a phone number and have someone take care of that by talking to somebody. Unfortunately, if you try to do that, you are likely to run into a lot of roadblocks. The best way and the easiest way to get that stuff taken care of is to send a written letter to the credit bureau, to their mailing address, saying, I found this on my credit file. I don't know what this is. This does not belong to me. Please investigate this. And then save a copy of that letter for yourself so that if they don't follow up on it, or they don't investigate, or they choose not to do anything about it, you have that letter. You know when you sent it, you can send it again. Or, and if you really run into trouble, you can find somebody like an attorney or a financial counselor or a financial advisor that can help you to take next steps.
And if you do, as you said, worst case scenario, you could find that your identity has been stolen. And I know myself, my husband, we've had the Social Security number stolen. One year I filed our taxes and they told me I'd already filed and I was getting a refund, and it was quite the opposite. That wasn't me. And that's how I found out. And I was advised to freeze my credit. And certainly, we have at that point. But would you advise individuals to freeze their credit before they have an issue to try to prevent having a problem?
I absolutely would. Freezing your credit is a really quick and easy process. You do it with each one of the 3 credit bureaus. It can be done through a simple and accessible online form. And if you ever need to thaw your credit because you want to take out a new loan or something, that is equally quick and easy and equally accessible. And it doesn't affect your credit score at all. That's one of the biggest concerns that people have is, if I freeze my credit, is that going to affect my credit score? The answer is absolutely not. In fact, it could help your credit score because it could prevent some of that misinformation from ending up in your credit file.
Right. Well, I think that's great information for folks to know, because I think not everyone is aware that you can do that to try to prevent issues from happening. And then budgeting, that's a key piece as well.
Budgeting is a key piece, and budgeting is something that many people resist doing because they feel like it's going to restrict them from spending, or it's going to be a lot of work, or they just don't know how to get started. really what budgeting is, in my mind, is trying to figure out where your money is going so that you can redirect money that from things that are less important to you to things that are more important to you. So as an example, let's say that you budget $500 a month for utilities. And I hope that your utilities aren't $500 a month,
not.
but I've actually heard that number from some people who run their air conditioner or their heat all the time.
Yeah.
So let's say that you budget $500 a month for utilities, and then you get a utility bill that is $600 one month, and you kind of panic and you say, "Oh, what should I do?" Well, what you should do is you should be flexible, and you should take money from one of your other budget categories that is less important to you than your utility bill, because your utility bill you can't not pay it. But you could skip, say, eating out for a few weeks in order to pay that utility bill. And what you would want to know is, well, how much money have I budgeted towards eating out? And it shouldn't be how much do I want to spend on eating out. It should be how much do I actually spend on eating out. So if I spend $200 a month on eating out, then I know that I can cut down my eating out habit by half and redirect that other $100 to that $600 utility bill.
And I think that's a key point too that you just brought up, is the budget isn't necessarily how much you would like to spend, but how much are you actually spending, and being able to have a way to track that, to create a budget and to actually see what you're spending, and if it's less than what you're bringing in, because what you might like to spend might be more than you actually have to spend.
Yeah. A budget can actually be very comforting too, because more often than not, when I work with clients on building a budget, we find that the things they need cost quite a bit less than what they actually bring in. And yet they come to me and they say, well, we're not able to make ends meet. We don't have enough money left at the end of the month to pay all of our bills and stuff. And once we start to analyze where the money is going, we quickly see that it's all about your priorities. There might be areas where if you spent a little bit less money, then you'd be able to make those ends meet. And it doesn't necessarily mean completely going without your daily cup of coffee, if that makes you happy, or eating out, but it may mean doing a Starbucks run every other day and bringing a cup of coffee from home on opposite days in order to make those ends meet. Or it gives you a goal to achieve. If you know that you are consistently spending $100 more than you are bringing in every month, then it might cause you to think about how you might be able to bring in $100 more a month from a side hustle, or from asking your boss for a raise, or any number of things.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Price here, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Navigating Life with Vision Loss. We hope that you had a wonderful time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at feedback@aftersight.org, or you can give us a phone call at 720-712-8856. Next week, Kim is going to be joining Chris again, and they're going to be diving more into the budgeting aspect and all the things related to finance. Be sure to stay tuned this month for the rest of finance as we kick off 2024. And we hope this episode has been able to help you navigate your life with vision loss.